Is real estate overpriced in Dallas, Texas? This is the million-dollar question everybody wants to know. But in order to answer this question, we need to answer a few other questions like, how do we actually determine what something is worth? What are the biggest factors that influence housing prices? What can we discern from these factors in today's current market? And how can we apply all of this information to help you make the most informed decision? Hello, my name is Michael. I own a real estate brokerage here in the Dallas area. And if you're looking to buy or sell in the Dallas area, whether it's next week or next year, I'd love to connect. I've helped every one of these yellow dots find their little piece of Texas, and I'd love to help you too. Just call, text, or shoot me an email. All that info is in the description below. First off, here in the United States, we have a market economy, sort of. In a free market economy, prices or value would simply be determined completely by the price that buyers and sellers arrive at based on supply and demand. I'm sure you've all seen a supply and demand chart at some point, and this is what would happen in a completely free economy. But here in the US, we have more of a mixed economy where the government is a really big additional factor. Specifically, the government is in complete control of the real estate market today by controlling the federal funds rate, which directly impacts mortgage rates, which impacts housing affordability, which dictates how many people are able to afford a home, also known as demand. The government also has an impact in other areas of real estate, like zoning and permitting. Depending on which city you live in, the government might make it very slow, very inefficient, and very expensive to build new housing, which then means some builders won't even touch your city. Or if they do, it may take them longer than normal to build their product, all of which gives you less housing supply, which drives prices up, and so on. But the point is, the government has an impact on both supply and demand. So we have supply, we have demand, and then we have the government, which impacts both. So what does this look like in today's market? Well, here in Dallas, as with much of the country, supply is extremely low. Historically, in Dallas County, we would need over 5,000 homes on the market at any given time to have a healthy and balanced market. As of today, we still have less than half of that, about 2,450 available homes. So even though houses seem very expensive and interest rates are still very high, inventory is climbing very slowly, which tells us there is still enough demand to keep prices where they are, at least for now. Which means the very short answer is that no, real estate in Dallas is not overpriced. If a home listed at $500K and someone paid $500K for it, then the home was worth $500K. There is no other method to determine this home's value. In a market economy, an item is worth what someone is willing to pay for it. Even if the actual structure itself could be built for $200K today, that just means the buyer valued the land and the neighborhood it was in at $300K, making this $200K home worth $500K when you add in the land. Anyone who owns real estate will tell you location is everything when it comes to determining price. You could buy a piece of land in South Dallas, or you could buy a piece of land in Highland Park that's the exact same size, and you're going to be paying about $1 million more. Why? Simply because people in Highland Park believe that land is worth $1 million more. So even if you really feel like prices should be lower, feelings don't have any bearing on price, unfortunately. A home is only worth what a buyer is willing to pay for it. Nothing more, nothing less. But it's still really hard to wrap your head around prices being this high. So we really need to start by discussing, how did we get here? Well, first, as a nation, we've been underbuilding our housing supply for more than a decade. For sure, more supply is going to need to be built by a lot to bring prices down. So we started out without having enough supply, and then during COVID, the government printed trillions of dollars, which of course caused massive inflation, which of course drove housing prices through the roof. But then it got even worse, because then the government had to raise interest rates through the roof to counter the inflation they had just caused by printing trillions of dollars. And this is why what the government does is so important. The government caused prices to shoot up. Now they're making housing unaffordable through rates. But the third and maybe biggest consequence of all this is that people who own a home now are not selling, adding to the extreme shortage of supply. Because nobody wants to sell a home they bought for $300K at a 2.75 interest rate just to buy the exact same home today for $500K at a 7% interest rate. For context, if you had bought a $300K home at a 2.75 interest rate just 2 years ago, your monthly payment would have been around $2,500. Today, that same home would be $500K, and at a 7% interest rate, you're looking at about $4,700 a month. So because of all the appreciation that happened from the inflation, if you just wanted to get a house like the one you already own in your exact same neighborhood, you're paying almost double every month. So why would anyone sell? Well, the answer is they're not, and they're not going to until rates come down and the monthly payment gets more affordable for them. So knowing all of this, what are some things we can expect moving forward? First of all, Nobody knows anything. Nobody can predict the future. Not a single person. There is no oracle. All we can do is work with the data that we have today. Today, in Dallas, interest rates are above 7%, and they've been around here for almost 2 months. Yet, the median list price hasn't dropped 1 penny. So what we know today is that even at the high prices, even with the high rates, there is enough demand to consume the current supply of homes on the market. What we also know is all year when interest rates have been below a 6.5%, there is a lot of demand. We see a lot of buyers applying for mortgages there. I cover this every single week in my weekly market update where I cover all of Dallas and Collin County. So if you want to follow along with that every week, make sure to subscribe and I'll link the latest one here. But on top of all this, you can also remember that back in January at the end, interest rates got down to about a 5.99% just for a brief moment, and that led to a 28% increase in prices in Dallas County from January to February. 28% in a single month, all because rates got down to 5.99, which is evidence there is a ton of demand below 6% rates. So we can know for sure if rates ever get anywhere near 6% again, we're going to see prices going straight up again. Even with these crazy high rates, supply is barely creeping up. If we get anything below a 6.5%, forget it, prices are going to take off again. And for further context on the supply shortage, I know we talked about Dallas County earlier, but Dallas, the city, to have a normal market would need over 3,000 homes on the market. Today, even with the high prices and high rates, we're up to about 1,300 homes on the market. That's less homes than we had on the market between August to December of last year, which was the first time interest rates ran all the way up over 7%. We have less homes on the market today than we did then. So again, our house is overpriced. As I've reiterated hopefully enough times by now, no, because a home is just worth whatever a buyer is willing to pay for it. If there is someone out there willing to pay $400K for an 800 square foot home, then that's what it's worth. That's how a market economy works. When no more buyers are willing to pay these prices, that's when prices will drop. And looking at this data, for you to believe houses are overpriced, meaning that the price needs to come down in the near future, you would have to believe that interest rates are going to at least stay above 7% or that they're going to continue to climb significantly from here. That's the only hope you have for prices to come down, is the government artificially curbing the demand enough for supply to start building up and prices to start coming down. And you also have to realize nearly 300 people move to Dallas, Texas every single day, and there are only 1,300 homes on the market. Now, of course, that includes families and such, but a lot of people are moving here all the time. And let's talk about the other side. Let's say you do believe prices are going to come down, but you're actually wrong and interest rates drop. Then as we discussed, prices are going to take off straight up. Everything is going to be multiple offers. You're going to need a ton of cash to just be able to compete. If interest rates get back below 6%, you're going to think the prices that they're at now are crazy cheap, and you're going to wish you had bought. So what should you do? You just have to realize that price is nothing more than a function of supply and demand. Things that don't affect what a home is worth include my opinion, your opinion, either of our feelings, what your parents think, what your real estate investor uncle thinks, and so on. So make the best decision you can with the information you have today. The best time to buy a home is always 5 years ago. You can ask anyone. The next best time to buy a home is always today. So what this means is if you can afford a home, that means if you can afford the monthly payment indefinitely, then you buy a home. Don't overthink it. Don't try to time the market. Buy the home, live in it, enjoy it, and in the long run, it's going to be worth 2 or 3 times what you bought it for. Just look back historically on any chart anywhere. That's what happens with real estate. When you live in a desirable city, there's a limited amount of land, there are a limited amount of houses, and the demand keeps flowing in. That's what drives prices up. And if you're still on the fence about whether or not it's a good time for you to buy, please watch this video. Or just call me and I can tell you stories. I have buyers that come to me every single year. We have a consult. They're perfectly able to afford a great home, and they just decide that they're going to wait because they just believe in their heart that prices have to come down. They tell me with full confidence based on what they heard, what they feel, and they've always been wrong. I have one buyer that I'll never forget. We found them the perfect home. It was great. It was like $230,000, low interest rate. Their monthly payment was going to be less than $1,300 a month. Their cash to close was going to be like $8,000. Neither of those things exist anymore, by the way. But rather than buy the home, they thought prices would come down. That same house today is worth over $350,000, and their monthly payment at these rates would be over $3,000, and their cash to close would have nearly tripled. So in order for them to afford the exact same home they could have bought a few years ago, their income would literally need to double, and it hasn't. So they're priced out of the market entirely. They won't be able to buy a home unless their income literally doubles, which for most people, that doesn't happen often. So they may be priced out of the market forever. And they 100% could have comfortably bought this house just a few years ago. So again, if you can afford to buy a house today, then buy a house. And if you have any questions or you want to discuss this further, or if you're considering buying or selling in the Dallas area, whether it's next week or next year, just call, text, or shoot me an email. I'd love to connect. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to hear your feedback. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.